What's up, everyone? It's Lan here with another episode of the Cheeseheadz Weekly Podcast. It is good to be with you here on a Tuesday. Likely this episode is coming out a little bit later, possibly even Wednesday morning, as I am recording it later on Tuesday evening. But I had to scrounge around for some topics, and I'm kind of glad I waited because we got some big news. We have the annual league meetings going on right now. And there's been some stuff happening, so excited to talk about that. And this episode is going to be mainly just news. I'm going to get into some fun draft topics, hopefully coming up in some later episodes here leading up to the draft. But this is going to be mainly news because we do have a lot of news to talk about, and I have a few opinions on some controversial topics. So we'll get right into that here in a minute. But first, if you want to support the show, I just want to say thanks for listening to start us off. That is the best way to support the show. But if you want to do more than that, feel free to check out the Q&As and polls. If you're listening on Spotify, we have those in every episode description. And you can answer a question I put out there just for some fun discussion. And I also will put out a poll. You can vote in that as well, and it's a lot of fun. There's a link in the description of every episode on every single platform to send in a voice message. You can send me a question or whatever you feel like. Any topic ideas, I'm always open to that for sure. And if you want me to, I can put that on the show and answer that question or whatever it is for you. The show is available everywhere you get your podcasts, except for Amazon Music. Show is available on YouTube in video format. I do apologize. Last one, for some reason, the camera got stopped. I record this myself, so I don't have someone behind the camera or anything like that. And it got stopped 9 minutes in for some reason, so we could not use the video. It was all audio. But we do have video, and hopefully will for this one, as long as the camera does not stop again. So you can check us out on YouTube, subscribe, follow the show wherever you get your podcasts, and of course you can hit the bell icon on YouTube or Spotify if you want to be notified when a new episode comes out. New episodes do come out every single Tuesday. Be sure to tell your friends about the show. More Packers fans, the better. And it's great to be able to get more people involved in listening to the show. Be sure to rate the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow the show on social media at Cheeseheadz_weekly. Most places except for X, which is at Cheeseheadz_W. And I'm pretty active on X and Instagram especially, and I post short clips on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, and it seems like there may have been one more. And just to give little tidbits, fun, highlights of each episode, so you can stay tuned for those. And I have a link tree. Link tr.ee/cheeseheadz_weekly. That'll tell you all the ways you can follow me on social media. I do have a Facebook page. That's the other place I post reels. And of course, you can check out the website at greatcove.net/cheeseheadz. Okay, we will get into some news. Like I said, the annual league meetings have been happening. And we, of course, get to have some press conferences. Now, I did not listen to any of these. I found little tidbits on Twitter, or X, I guess, just from Brian Gutekunst's press conference, mainly a few from Matt LaFleur's. I'm not going to go into that. I did not listen to any of them at all, but I watched a few clips, I guess. I'm going to just look over a few of the highlights that Brian Gutekunst had in his press conference. We'll start with Aaron Jones. We got a few tidbits on Aaron Jones. Now, it seems to me I may have forgot something here. On releasing Aaron Jones, he said, quote, really tough. The business of football never stops. Confirmed the team. He did say the team asked Jones to take a pay cut. Just didn't really work for both sides, and he decided that releasing him and signing Josh Jacobs was in the best interest of the team. On Josh Jacobs, is a proven back, runs with a lot of violence, a big back, durable back, and he thinks Jacobs can, quote, flourish as a runner, blocker, and receiver, and, quote, really excited to have the player and the person added to our football team. So, just quick thoughts on the Aaron Jones release. He did say that there's no blame at all being put on Jones for not taking the pay cut. He said, if I could find it here, he said, quote, he's always done right by us. The situation just didn't work out. There was not much. There was a little bit of consideration, I guess, to keep Jones and Jacobs. Gutekunst said the Packers discussed the idea, but he didn't like the cap ramifications in 2025 especially. Now, the Packers did bring back Keyshawn Nixon on a 3-year, $18 million deal, and Goot said, quote, he's very excited to have him back. Speaking of Hafley, Jeff Hafley, the new defensive coordinator, is apparently very excited to be able to have Nixon back in that defense. He likes the stability and versatility that Nixon brings to the nickel spot. He was the starter in the slot all year. He says they'll probably add some competition there in the draft, potentially. But sounds like Nixon will be in line to start again, basically, unless he is drastically underperforming and the rookie is overperforming, perhaps. But likely not going to do a whole lot to try to replace him. Also, we will talk about Nixon, the returner, here a little bit later with some of the rule changes. Some big rule changes happened in the league meeting, so we will talk more about Keyshawn Nixon. So, as far as safeties, on Xavier McKinney, it sounded to me like, from what I heard, that he was a little bit surprised that McKinney was even available. You know, he's only, 24 years old. A free agent. Did pretty much checked all the boxes of what they want. He said, quote, unique player to come available. And they fit the criteria, or McKinney fit the criteria of what the Packers want in a free agent. Young, difference maker, leader. And the Packers did like him coming out of Alabama as well. As far as more safeties, veteran or a draft pick, he said the Packers would prefer a younger guy, obviously. They're going to look at all options, including the free agent market, following the draft. As far as the linebackers, he says, quote, I feel really good about Isaiah. And he also just likes the fact that Eric Wilson and Christian Welch are back. And that brings me to another piece of news. The Packers did bring back Eric Wilson on a 1-year deal. I don't believe the contract details are out yet, but it's obviously a big win for the Packers and great for special teams, and provides depth at the linebacker position. So now we do have pretty good depth. We just need another difference maker there. And he did say he believes that linebacker positions in a 4-3 are interchangeable. So it's not like we have to look for a specific type of linebacker. Will the Packers go lighter at the edge in a 4-3? He says, quote, I prefer bigger guys on the edge. But he did not also rule out going lighter. He said, quote, depends on the player. and he just doesn't want to get small in the defensive front, which makes sense. And we do have some smaller defensive linemen there, so I don't really expect him to just throw out every threshold now that we're switching defenses a little bit. Again, the 4-3 to 3-4, I think, and LaFleur or maybe Gutekunst, maybe both, said in the past that they think the transition will be pretty seamless with the players they have now. They don't have to go out and acquire a bunch of different players for that, because a lot of times they're going to be in nickel defense anyway, so they're not going to have, it'll be more like 4-2, and then you have your slot corner in. So you're not always going to have the three linebackers on the field, and it's not going to be that much different when you're in nickel. On A.J. Dillon, the A.J. Dillon signing, he apparently was a little bit surprised to get him back. I thought he would have a little bit more interest in the free agent market. He said, quote, "That was a nice surprise." And that certainly lines up with the report we had before the signing of A.J. Dillon, that the Packers were not expected to bring him back. But it worked out, and they brought him back, and it kind of lessens the need to draft a linebacker this year, a running back this year. They can wait till next year's draft if they want to, or they at least don't have to pick a running back very high up, and I think that opens up some other options and gives them the ability to address other need positions and give them the ability to contend instead of having to look more towards the future. On Carrington Valentine played, quote, "very consistent football." That was good to hear, especially as a 7th-round rookie pick. Needs to get a little bit stronger, but pretty much did what they needed him to do. When they asked him to step up for them, he did, and said, quote, "I like the way the competition there is shaping up." Speaking of the cornerback position. All right, so obviously Jordan Love, the big talk is that extension in the offseason. We're looking at the extension. Is he going to get an extension this offseason? Well, Gutekunst said they're in the preliminary talks of giving Jordan Love an extension. He said this is going to take some time, though, and not something they want to rush. Obviously, you want it to happen sooner rather than later. That's, very beneficial, but they want to make sure it's done the right way, and so they've started the preliminary talks. They cannot get an extension done until after May 3, based on, had something to do with the terms of Love's contract extension, 1-year contract extension last year, which basically was a reworking of his 5th-year option. So he'll be back for year 5, 2nd year as a starter, but the Packers aren't really afraid to pay a quarterback big money after only 1 year. They had Jordan Love in the building for 4 years. They got to see what he can do. He had a great year, took some massive strides just in year 1 as a starter. And Gutekunst said, quote, "We know how he's going to respond and react and work." So Jordan Love, not a question anymore. Absolutely. They know what he is and working on getting that deal done. But again, could take some time. So, yeah, we just got to sit back and just relax, wait on that a little bit. All right, so that's it for what I have to say on the Gutekunst stuff. Now, there is a little bit of Packers news here. There have been, on the Lambeau Field lease, there have been talks for an extension, and for some reason, the city of Green Bay decided to walk away from negotiations on a new lease agreement for Lambeau Field. Now, there are 9 years left on the current lease, but the two sides had been negotiating an extension for the past year. That was until a couple weeks ago when Green Bay Mayor Eric Genrich, I think that's how you say that, Genrich, I don't know, called Murphy to inform him that he was ceasing negotiations for the time being. Murphy said, quote, "Really, it's quite honestly not only disappointed, but also very surprised. We're a community-owned team. We're only going to give back. We want to work things out, and we've shown. We're not asking for public money. We invested a lot of money into the stadium and into the community with Titletown. We've told the city we'll continue to invest in the future." So they're open to investing in Lambeau Field and the city of Green Bay. A little bit strange and, like Murphy said, surprising that they are not, that they're not kind of letting those negotiations stall for the moment. Hopefully it can happen. Obviously, I can't imagine the Packers playing anywhere other than Green Bay. So hopefully, eventually, the talks will start up again. We'll be able to make that happen. But not a great look for the city of Green Bay. I mean, Packers are a big, big part of Green Bay, and I'm not real sure why that happened. But I'm sure, they had to have some reason to do it. So it's just a little bit tough to tell from the outside without knowing a whole lot about it. All right, so there's definitely some big rule changes here for some reason I'm not, okay, here we go. Big rule changes happening at the annual league meetings here in 2024. The NFL has eliminated the hip drop tackle. There will now be a 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down if the technique is used in play. To call a penalty, the official must see a defender unweight himself by swiveling and dropping his hips and or lower body, landing on and trapping the runner's legs at or below the knee. So basically it's a tackle where you're tackling a player from behind, bringing them down by basically just falling yourself. You're just dragging yourself and dragging them down, and you're just dropping the hip and falling on those legs. That is one of the conditions. You have to fall on the runner's legs, and that tends to happen in hip drop tackles. Now, there's been a big uproar, mainly by defensive players in the NFL. Players were not into this. Now, I'm not real sure, if I haven't looked into it, like what the offensive players think, the ones that are actually getting tackled like this. My guess is they're okay with it. So if I just look here, I reposted some things on X. I'm not sure if I can say this name, but Tazim Wajed, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is Christian Watson's dad, posts a lot of things on X, and he also is starting a podcast of his own, tweets out a lot of different fun topics, and so I'm kind of interested in what he has to say, and he's been all over this this hip drop tackle thing, and he's basically responding to a lot of fans that are against it, because there's going to be so many more missed tackles, blah, blah, blah. You can't tackle anymore. How are the defenders supposed to make any plays? It's all offense. I get it. It is a lot of offense, and you know what? The offense is what's really fun to watch, not the defense. The offense is what scores points. We like high-scoring games. It's all for the ratings and for the money. So the NFL certainly did not do this for the benefit of the people, of the players. Certainly not the defensive players. But it's just, I totally get it. Now, my reaction at first was that, okay, how are players supposed to tackle now? Especially when you're tackling from behind. But, if I can just find some explanations here to kind of reiterate what this guy said and what my thoughts are. He laid it out very well, I think, and Sam Monson from PFF is also very much in agreement with this opinion, and basically, NFL coaches should be able to drill players better. Especially in high school and college. Tackling, basically, there's just not a ton of emphasis put on it. And there's a lot you can do to tackle a guy the right way. You don't have to do the hip drop. Now, there's a lot of guys saying, well, what if he's behind, trailing the runner? Because that's kind of what it was with the Logan Wilson. That clip has been circulating, the Logan Wilson tackle of Mark Andrews. And he was tackling him, and he used a hip drop tackle, landed on his legs, and Mark Andrews got injured. Of course, the NFL, that's the reason for them eliminating this for player safety. Whether they actually care about player safety or not leaves a lot to be desired, because they've made plenty of questionable moves before. But basically, defenders, a lot of fans have said defenders are smaller than a lot of offensive players, and so they have to drag them down like that. But I've seen, if you teach the technique properly, you get them on the legs. A lot of players with the hip drop, you're grabbing them around the hips, you're dropping those hips, but it's not that hard. All you have to do is either, for one, take better angles, use proper technique at the beginning of the tackle, not just at the end of the tackle. And Jeff Hafley's talked about this too, which is why I'm not terribly worried about it for the Packers. They missed so many tackles. I think Jeff Hafley is going to drill them right and hopefully fix this tackling problem for the Packers and, help not do this hip drop nonsense. And we did see a clip circulating Packers Twitter was Lucas Van Ness sack of Dak Prescott. It looked a little bit scary, honestly, for Dak Prescott. I can see why this is just not very safe for the lower body, the legs, and the way this works. So, here's what we want. This is on the Wilson tackle of Andrews. Basically, he didn't have to grab Andrews up high and drop his weight down on the back of his legs to make the tackle. He could have just kept running through the right angle. Yeah, if you watch the clip, I'm literally watching it right now. He kind of took a bad angle. He honestly did. He's coming over from the side, and he runs it too flat, runs kind of in behind Andrews and grabs him from behind, drags him down, lands on his legs. And Andrews ends up being hurt. Now, if you're chasing down guys from behind, I get it. You want to keep them from getting the stick, so maybe if you drag them down and land on their legs, they're not falling forward quite as far, and so you're saving a foot or two, and perhaps a first down, perhaps a touchdown. Whereas if you do it the proper way, if you're actually clearly trailing a guy, not just taking a bad angle like Wilson is here, if you're actually trailing a guy straight from behind him, if you just go, drop your wrap up on the tackle down a little bit further, get the legs, just lock up the ankles, they're down in an instant. Like, if you can't move your feet, you're not gonna keep moving. So you can just keep, like with the Wilson play, run through the proper angle of Andrews' path, continue to drive his feet at the point of contact, and put his arms around Andrews' legs, lock the ankles, and making him fall to the ground that way. And basically just execute the way you should have learned football from a young age. It's just coaches have not taught it right. Basically, players are just doing whatever they can to get the guy down. And I mean, this is clearly a bad angle right here. It really is. I don't know. It's hard to tell, especially the ones from behind. But yeah, he could just go low or lock up the legs quite easily. And I think he still could have prevented Andrews from getting the first down. It would have been close. You never know. But either way, a foot or two, a yard or two, does not make a difference as long as you're still making the tackles, and that is still very much possible. And I don't think it's going to change the game that much. I think people are making too big of a deal about it. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, I've seen so many fans say, "Oh, well, the NFL is going to flag football now. Soon we're not going to have any tackling at all." I don't think so. This is not. I mean, coaches got to do a better job, especially at the younger ages. But even in the NFL, maybe. I mean, these are NFL players doing this. If you can teach them better in the NFL as well, maybe they can correct some of these habits, and that'll help. But I don't think it's a bad move. Would I have banned that tackle? Questionable. If I'm the NFL, I'm not real sure. Well, if I'm the NFL, yeah, of course I would. Anything to make more money. But if it's me, I'm not real sure I would have. It's kind of 50-50 for me. Like, I like the fact that, especially I play fantasy football, if we're going to actually get less injuries, if that's actually going to happen, which, I mean, it looks like even the ones that don't result in injuries look not great. Like, it's not, it's just not, it doesn't look very fun. It looks like the person's legs are about to break, and like, you get your foot stuck. That's kind of how Rodgers got his Achilles ripped. His foot just kind of got stuck in the turf as someone was dragging him down with the hip drop. And so it's just not a huge fan of just the injury side of it. So I think that's a good thing. I think that's a benefit. I think players just learning to tackle better is a benefit. So I think overall, this is probably a good thing. And there are always bad things to every rule, and that's why it took them a while to ban it. They didn't just ban it right away. So all in all, I think this is actually a good move. I've thought about it a while, and I think it's a good move. I think it's not a bad move at all to eliminate the hip drop tackle. All right, so we did have that. That's the most controversial one, obviously. But we do have some other ones, and one is new kickoff rules. They completely revamped the kickoff rules. They're trying out XFL-style kickoff. So basically, the way this is going to work, the kickers will continue to kick from the 35-yard line, which they had before. The other 10 players on the kickoff team will line up on the receiving team's 40-yard line. Kicker kicks from the 35. Normally all the other players are lining up along that 35-yard line. Instead, all 10 other players will line up at the receiving team's 40-yard line, so quite a bit, closer. And at least 9 members, possibly 10, of the return team will line up in what is called a setup zone between the 35 and 30-yard lines. A 5-yard zone there, obviously on the receiving team side of the field. And up to 2 returners will line up in a landing zone between the goal line and the 20-yard line. So that's a 20-yard zone. Now, no one other than the kicker and returner or returners can move until the ball hits the ground or hits a player inside the landing zone. So basically, it's going to be a little bit strange. Players, you got to just wait until the ball hits the ground. So basically, the idea is to keep players from, for safety, to try to eliminate some injuries that happen on kickoffs. Just because of the high speed of players moving, instead of the players running down the field at full speed while the ball's in the air, they just sit there and wait while the ball's in the air until it hits the ground or a player, catches it. And then we will have mass chaos after that. So that is when the players will start moving. And the kicking team does have a slight advantage in that regard because they'll be facing the direction the ball will be going, while the receiving team will be facing the kicking team. So the kicking team will get a slight jump on it, being able to see the ball. Not a huge deal, but it does make a difference. And also, and something that will make a big difference, the touchback will make the ball go out to the 30, and there's just none of this fair catch nonsense on kickoffs. The ball will go out to the 30 on touchbacks unless the ball hits outside the end zone and rolls into the end zone and then is downed. If it is downed inside the end zone after rolling in, the receiving team will start at the 20-yard line. So basically, it incentivizes teams to not kick touchbacks, not just kick it out of the end zone. They're going to want to allow players to try for a return, likely, depending on how easy it ends up being for a return, which I don't think it's going to be drastically easier. It's just that teams will get more returns. And so, because they're not going to want the team they're kicking off to start at the 30-yard line every time if they get a touchback every time. So we'll see more returns, looking to keep the receiving team inside the 30-yard line. And yeah, there just have not been a ton of returns lately, a lot of touchbacks. And so the idea is for safety, first and foremost, at least that's what the NFL says. But then the idea is just to make the sport better. And I really, really love this move. I really do. Great move. Now, this is for 1 year. This is like a 1-year trial period. They'll revisit it next year, decide if they want to keep it or not. I think it's a great move. I kind of hope it works out because more returns makes the game more fun with a reduced risk of injury on those returns. So the injuries may not go up or down just because there's more returns. You still have more, what's the word? I cannot think. Wow. You have more, I'm literally blanking, but there's still more chance. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Very easy word to remember for most people. More chance of injury just with the, or risk just with the more returns, more football more tackling, hitting, blocking, whatever it is happening on those plays, but we won't have the high speed running. I really love this. I really love it for the Packers because guess what? The Packers just re-signed their all-pro kick returner, Keyshawn Nixon, to a 3-year deal. His stock just went way up, okay? We got Keyshawn Nixon here, who is an amazing returner. He's going to get more opportunity to return it from outside the end zone instead of like 5 yards deep because teams, kick out of the end zone. They want touchbacks. So he won't have to kick from 5 yards into the end zone. He'll be returning outside the end zone, or else he's starting at the 30-yard line. So it's a big win for the Packers when you have a good returner like Keyshawn Nixon, and that's why this re-signing makes so much sense for the Packers. Even if some people think it's slightly expensive on the deal, if he can help out as their slot corner and be their guy at slot corner, which I think he can be. He shows enough for me last year. Certainly had some games where, it wasn't all that great. But just the fact that he's an amazing kick returner and we're going to have more opportunities for returns is going to be great. Keyshawn Nixon is definitely excited about it himself. And big win for the Packers and I think for the NFL at large, for fans watching the game. I think it's going to be great and really excited about it. All right, so some other rule changes here. Teams have unlimited designations for return from injured reserve during the postseason. So as many players as they want can come back from IR during the postseason. Playoffs, each team can place up to 2 players on a reserve list to be designated for return on the final day of roster reductions, removing the requirement that a player must spend at least 1 day on the active roster following the final roster reduction in order to become eligible to be designated for return. Teams can now review when there is clear and obvious visual evidence that the game clock expired before any snap. So not the play clock, but the game clock, which would be the game that actually keeps time of the game, not the play clock. So not for delay of games, but for seeing if the team, before the quarter ends or something, or before a 2-minute warning, to see if probably just before a quarter ends to review if the clock, if the quarter ended before the snap was off, which we've seen a few of those controversial type plays. Teams can now review a ruling of a passer down by contact or out of bounds before throwing a pass. So, very minor change. Doesn't have a whole lot of things to think about there. Also, the trade deadline was pushed back from after Week 8 to after Week 9, the Tuesday afternoon after Week 9. It sets it right at the midway point of the 18-game regular season. Also, you can challenge a third time. Now, if you get one challenge correct, before you could only challenge a third time if you got your first 2 challenges, if they were both successful. Now only one of them has to be successful for you to be able to challenge a third time. Also, I think I saw that roughing the passer is now reviewable upstairs. So they can now be reviewed. Those plays can be the roughing the passer and also intentional grounding. So those could potentially be interesting. We've had plenty of controversial ones for both of those. So it's nice that those can be reviewed now. Okay, I have one more piece of news to mention here, and that is the Packers signing of Greg Joseph, veteran kicker. He has kicked since 2018, spent the last 3 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, His career field goal percentage is 82.6. Excuse me. The Packers have made it known that they're looking for competition for Carlson. They did already sign another kicker, Jack Podlesny, but they decided to bring in another vet who has, done it for a while and does actually where is it? He holds the record for most game-winning kicks in his career, I think that's what it is. Of 6. He has 6 of those, so has that going for him. But actually, believe it or not, last year, Carlson had a better field goal percentage of 81.8 to Joseph's 80.0. Now, that's not real significant. Over his career, Joseph is 38 out of 58 on kicks over 40 yards, or 65.5%, with 15 makes of 50 or more yards. He has connected on only 90% of his extra points. Carlson and Joseph were 7 of 13 on kicks of at least 40 yards last season. Carlson missed a kick over 40 yards in the postseason in the divisional round loss to the Niners. So, we do have competition. And Joseph was not good enough for the Vikings to bring him back. Became a free agent. And it seems like he's a lot like Carlson. The longer the kick, the harder, the less likely it is for him to put it through. And that's kind of how Carlson is big, even though both of them are known for their strong legs somehow. Carlson is really confusing to me. Why? It's always been a little strange to me why he has been labeled as having a strong leg, but yet last year never kicked a touchback. Had trouble with the longer field goals, and his long was 53 yards. And looked like the 53-yarder looked like I have a lot of it. I think is it just doesn't always come off his foot right when he's going that far, and I mean that's kind of an issue when you're an NFL kicker. But I do think he has a fairly strong leg, but I don't know. I'm not sure if he could get the kick to go through the uprights from 61 yards out. That is Greg Joseph's long. Now, again, if you're not accurate from deep, it doesn't really matter how strong of a leg you have, and maybe that's the issue with Carlson, and it seems to be more the issue with Joseph as well. But regardless, there is going to be a competition. To be quite honest, I hope Carlson wins. I really do. I want him to go out there and win that job and become the Packers' starting kicker for a while. But it may not happen, and I think the Packers are doing the right thing by bringing in competition for Carlson. So, big move there. Obviously, it's a kicker move, but still really like the move. And good to have that competition. All right, that will do it for me today. I thought it might be a little shorter just going over news, but some interesting topics to go over with the league meetings. Always a fun time of year. We'll get into some fun draft topics next week, and hopefully be able to put something good together for you all then, and should be a fun time. We'll see y'all next Tuesday, and that is when new episodes come out every single Tuesday. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Like, subscribe, comment on YouTube. Also follow the show wherever you get the show, and rate the show. And I will talk to y'all later. Go Pack Go.